My father's mother loved my mom, which my father's other wife hated. Notoriously cruel, she wanted my dad for herself, and to be honest, she was not up against much. My grandmother had given her children a rough childhood, and the excuse that because mine was too does not exactly fly. I can tell you that because it is the same excuse my father gave to me while rejecting it from her. Yet my mother believed in forgiveness for everyone, except herself. My father could poop on my face, and as a good little girl, I would have to call it a facial. It is a disgusting example that oddly matches how disgusting I felt and had to behave, to coddle a volatile man just to be deemed good. To my father's mother, my mother's perspective of unwavering loyalty and love oddly matched hers. When you love someone truly, you have no bounds, or rather, boundaries. My father would make my grandmother cry with how he spoke to her, yelling at her like she was a dog that just would not die. And she stayed, praying for his love to return and thinking that was good motherhood. Loving my father was a humiliation ritual, veiled as a lesson in humility, and to this day it challenges me to wonder, did my mom love me if she put me through it? Okay, so this was a brief episode, and I kind of wanted to keep it like that. So let's unpack. Um, I always found it strange two things in terms of my grandmother. The first was my father honestly thought she was the devil. Like she was the worst human being to the point where his fellow siblings kind of questioned him a little bit in terms of it wasn't a great childhood. It was rough. It was toxic. But, she's not evil and she is trying to redeem herself. And my father hated that woman. Hated her, hated her, hated her. In part because one of my father's biggest issues with his mother and his other wife was he felt they blocked him from this supposed greatness that he was going to have. He skipped grades. He really was a fucking genius. Okay, like the man was a criminal and a lawyer all at once, committing crimes and defending them. Um, I always say that, but it was true. It was true, and I think his hatred for his mother and his other wife was his other wife got pregnant and he felt forced to marry her. And it was his biggest gripe, especially because he felt his eldest daughter was exactly like her and they were both infamously mean, according to him. And according to the rest of his family, she was always fighting. His other wife and my sister were always fighting with his sisters and his mother. And really, I don't feel, and one of the things that I remark is my grandmother felt my mother was a bridge and would have really liked that my father stayed with her or my mother hadn't divorced him because she felt she would have made sure that he had connection and contact with his siblings and kind of encouraged forgiveness and healing and things like that. And his other wife was like, get them the hell out. It's time to end it. And for me, my father loved people fighting for him. That was his love language, seeing women turn against each other for him. And it wasn't about whether or not those women liked each other or liked themselves. It was about whether or not they liked him. And I think he hated his other wife. Hated her, hated her, hated her. And I felt really bad for my sister because I have an upcoming episode called Guard Dog. Because in often emotional scapegoats, hi, me, what they have is their father gives to every other sibling and doesn't give to them. Hi, me. And kind of emotionally scapegoats them, turns the other siblings against them, lies about, the emotional scapegoat. Hi, me. And what the other children become are golden children. They are the best. They're wonderful. They get everything that he has. What I felt, though, with my father, and particularly his hatred for my older sister, was she wasn't the golden child, she was the guard dog. Because every time I told my father he was being mean, he would say, "Your sister protects me." And I would ask him, "What do you mean?" She just protects me. She protects my feelings. And he would say it in a way not like you should protect my feelings, but in a way of he kind not kind of he specifically threatened me that he would get my sister on me if I kept on calling him out on how he was mean, because initially he was saying it in this sense of your sister protects me. And the way he said it was off. It wasn't like you should protect my feelings too. It felt like a threat. And then, my father was very repetitive in his nature of malice. And then he started saying, she'll come for you. And she did in a letter, but I didn't bite. I didn't bite because I really felt if my father talked so horribly about his grandchildren and his children, he was probably talking horribly about me because he was talking horribly to me. Like he was very much behind their back, but he was to my face that he did not like me, that he thought I was disgusting. And what was crazy was he used that same excuse he was rejecting from his mother, which is, um, my childhood was horrible, and that's why I'm horrible. Yet I'm cognizant enough that I'm horrible because of my childhood. But my choice not to heal it with my one daughter versus my other kids shows that I can do better. I just don't want to for you. Ta da! And I end the episode. It's my briefest episode, and I kind of love it. It was tempting to elongate, and I probably will. Um, is that my mother thought that was humility, kind of just sticking out his abuse, calling it flawed, and that was an act of virtue. And sometimes what I'm trying to learn now is that that was abusive also. If your child cries so much with this one human being, it doesn't matter if that's their dad. That person is their pain. Get the pain out, remove them from their pain. And I think my grandmother, like my mom would say that, he's lost, he's just wounded, that's why he wounds. And I think for my grandmother, that was just like, wow, what a great human being to kind of see that he could do better and encourage it, despite the fact that he is on auto destruct to every woman that loves him. And she felt his other wife didn't do that, kind of isolated him, fed his ego. But I felt amongst everybody, everyone was fighting for a loser. I really did. I felt like, and maybe now I want to put that fighting for a loser. I just didn't. My father was so mean and messy and draining. And he had all these women fighting for his love, sisters, mom, my mom, his other wife. And he just talked horribly about every woman. To have a vag was to lose your badge of respect to this man. And I felt like from a very young age, like I was being trained to fight for a loser because he would say these horrible things about his family and me and just talk horrible about the world, and I'd smile and I'd be like, "Oh, well, I love you, dad. Feel better." And I'd walk away so empty because that's what he wanted from me. And that's what my mother encouraged. That was a good girl. Just ignore all the vitriol, ignore how he makes you want to cry, smile, and that's good behavior. And now it makes me wonder, it makes me even doubt her love. Because I always say my mother loves me, but she's not loving. And I think that sometimes the she's not loving comes in because I don't, something in my soul always told me love does not have to be pain. Humility and humiliation are not the same. Fear does not make you responsible for yourself or accountable. Like these are separate feelings, separate emotions, separate entities and energies that I was really raised to confuse as one and the same. If you don't pamper yourself, that's humility. No, that's sad. And I would see my father, who was just the most self centered, greedy, malicious person, get everything he wanted. And like, he didn't have to have money. He didn't care if he had to commit fraud, steal, or just manifest it. He was buying up the place. And that kind of energy, that ability to do horrible things and always land better than your victims, fascinated me. Fascinated me, even as one of my father's victims, because he never lost. He just waited and manipulated to see how he could not only regain, but gain double. And he did. He really, that's one of the things about Daddy Recovery that always makes me marvel. My father ruined my mother's life, ruined my life, ruined his mother's life, even ruined his sister's life. I think the way he stirred mental instability in his other wife, like she stalked us, she fought with everybody for him. I think that is ruining. And I think the way I feel, my sister would never believe me if I told her how much my father hated her. And that ruined my life because I really wanted a sister. I really wanted siblings, and it's something that I talk about in an upcoming episode. But when you're the emotional scapegoat and they're the guard dogs because they weren't the golden child, I don't think you could be a golden child if your father hates you, just acts like he loves you. I don't think that. And that's the terminology, the proper terminology in like family psychology, the emotional scapegoat, hi, me, versus the golden child or the golden children, and how that disrupts any potential relationship because they are just seeing their dad for what their dad offers them. Whereas the emotional scapegoat is as well, but he's offering me, hi, me, poop. Um, and I just thought, I really noted when I was a child how much my father loved embarrassing his mother. Loved it, like pump it in his veins with heroin. Something he did as well. Um, and at least once. And it took me a while, and it's something that I do in a lot of relationships, to realize that that when somebody humiliates every woman in their life, they're probably humiliating you and you don't realize it. Like he humiliated my mom just on bigamy alone. And then he would gaslight, oh, I love you. I just make mistakes. And it's something that I've realized in a lot of my relationships of kind of dating really mean men and seeing how they were mean to everybody and not realizing I'm on the list. Because then they could gaslight me or we would have a good date. And it's something I really want to check because it all boils down to that belief that handling how somebody humiliates you is some form of humility. And I really do think that is not only BS, but that's how you raise a coward. So check out daddyrecovery.com and follow me on all socials and let's begin this journey, shall we?